There's a voice in your head. Right now, you're hearing mine. But underneath it is another one. Yours. The voice you think in. The one that talks to you when you're alone, when you're lying awake at night, when you're deciding something and no one else can hear. You've listened to it every single day of your life. And you've always assumed it was you. But here's a question that should bother you. If that voice is you, then who's listening to it? Someone in there is talking. Someone in there is hearing it. They can't both be you. Tonight, we find out who's actually inside your head and why, for some people, the voice they trust most was never theirs to begin with. Start with what the voice actually does. It narrates your life. It reads street signs. It rehearses arguments you'll never have. It replays the most embarrassing thing you did years ago at 3 in the morning for no reason. It judges. It plans. It comments on everything, including this. It's so constant that you've stopped noticing it, the way you stop hearing a fan that never turns off. It's the first thing awake before you've even opened your eyes. It's still going when you're trying to fall asleep, replaying, rehearsing, refusing to go quiet. For most people, it almost never stops. And here's something strange about it. When you talk inside your head, your body almost says it out loud. Scientists can place sensors on your throat and lips and watch the muscles you use for speech twitch, firing the words silently, never quite releasing them. Your inner voice isn't really thinking. It's whispering, a speech your mouth rehearses thousands of times a day and never lets out. You'd assume this is just how human minds work, that everyone has the same quiet narrator in there. That's where the first crack appears, because some people don't have a voice in their head at all. None. Just silence. For a long time, nobody believed this. If you have an inner voice, it's almost impossible to imagine thinking without one. Then a psychologist named Russell Hurlburt spent decades actually checking. He gave people a beeper. At random moments it would go off and they had to write down exactly what was in their head the instant before, not what they assumed was usually there. What was actually there, right then. And the results surprised everyone. Even the people being studied were often wrong about their own minds. They'd swear they thought in words all day, then the beeper would catch them in pure silent images or raw feeling with no words at all. We are remarkably bad at knowing what's really happening in our own heads. The inner voice showed up far less than people thought, and for some people, it never showed up at all. In 2024, researchers gave this a name, anendophasia, living without an inner voice. These people don't think in sentences. They think in images, in feelings, in pure concepts that never become words. They're not slower. They're not less intelligent. They solve problems, fall in love, win arguments, all of it, with no narrator at all. And many had no idea they were different until they were adults and found out, to their shock, that the rest of us walk around with a voice narrating everything, just as you probably can't imagine life without yours. So sit with that. If a person can think, decide, live an entire life with no inner voice at all, then the voice isn't the thinking. The thinking happens somewhere underneath. Silent. The voice is just laid on top of it. Which raises the real question. If the voice isn't your thoughts, what is it? And where did it come from? You weren't born with it. Babies don't have an inner voice. It isn't standard equipment. It's installed. In the 1930s, a psychologist named Vygotsky watched very young children closely and noticed something every parent has seen. Little kids talk to themselves, out loud. They narrate their own play. Put the block here. No. There. They tell themselves what to do in full sentences to an audience of no one. And as they grow, that talking gets quieter. Then it's just moving lips. Then it disappears inside. The voice in your head is the out-loud self-talk of a child, folded inward until no one can hear it. But follow it one step further and it gets unsettling. Where did the child get the words? From the adults around them. Be careful. Don't touch that. Good job. What is wrong with you? The child absorbs those voices, the tone, the words, the judgment, and turns them inward. So the voice in your head was never a single speaker. It's built out of everyone who ever shaped you. When you criticize yourself, listen closely sometime. You're often hearing someone else's exact words. A parent, a teacher, someone from a long time ago, still talking, in a voice that now sounds like yours. The psychologist Charles Fernyhough spent years studying this and found the inner voice isn't even one voice. It's a conversation, different perspectives, arguing, comforting, second guessing. You're not a narrator in there, you're a crowd. And the voice you trust most, the one you call your innermost self, is a chorus of other people, wearing your accent. It's why your inner critic can be crueler than you'd ever be out loud. It learned that cruelty somewhere. And it's why, in your worst moments, the voice that tears you down and the voice that builds you back up can feel like two different people. In a way, they are, but it gets stranger, because in some people, the system that marks this voice as yours breaks. Go back to the question from the start. When you speak inside your head, someone talks and someone listens. Both are you. But that's a genuinely strange thing for a mind to do. How can oneself tell itself something it already knows? Here's how your brain pulls it off. Every time it generates an inner sentence, it sends itself a quiet note. That one was me. I made that. Ignore it. It's called source monitoring, a tiny tag your brain staples to every thought, marking it as self-made. It happens thousands of times a day, perfectly, invisibly. It's the only reason your own thoughts feel like yours. And in some people, that tag fails. The brain still generates the inner voice, but it stops marking it as self-made. And the result is terrifying. Your own inner voice, the same one you've had your whole life, suddenly arrives feeling like it's coming from outside. A voice that speaks to you, comments on you, that feels completely, undeniably real, and not yours. This is a large part of what it means to hear voices. And studies show something chilling. When many people hear voices, the muscles in their throat are quietly firing. They are, without knowing it, generating the voice themselves. It's their own inner speech. The brain just stopped recognizing it. And it isn't only people with a diagnosis. Push any brain hard enough. Extreme stress, exhaustion, days without sleep, total isolation, and that tag begins to slip. People alone in the dark too long start to feel a presence. To hear a voice that isn't there. The thing that keeps your thoughts feeling like yours is more fragile than you'd ever want to know. And that's the part that should stay with you. The gap between I'm thinking and a stranger is speaking to me is not some vast canyon. It's one thin mechanism, one small tag that says, this is you. When that single label slips, your own thought walks in as an intruder. So let's count who's actually in there. You have a voice you weren't born with, built from the voices of everyone who shaped you, rehearsing silently in the muscles of your throat thousands of times a day, and it only feels like yours because one tiny part of your brain keeps quietly insisting that it is. And in every silent moment, alone, deciding, lying awake, you are both speaking and listening at once. A conversation between parts of you that are never quite the same. The unsettling thing was never that there's a voice in your head. It's that you never chose it. Most of you can never switch it off, and you can never be fully certain whose words you're actually hearing. You are not alone in there. You are the voice, and the one who listens, and the whole crowd of people who taught you how to speak. So tonight, when the lights go off and it goes quiet and the voice starts up again, listen carefully. It'll sound like you. It always has. But it was never only you.